we're going to be talking about Pacific Rim, and today I am joined by...
I'm Dan.
And I'm Nick. And I believe on the couch I am the only one to have seen this movie.
Yes.
So, this is going to fall into our quick ones format.
Yep.
Just to start off, any questions you guys have about Pacific Rim Uprising?
All right, so we both saw the first Pacific Rim movie, and
Okay.
it was definitely a great popcorn. It was a movie where you go into it and you just kind of are like, I'm accepting robots fighting animal monsters.
Yes.
And that's the level that was
Sea creature.
Sea creatures
sea
to guide you. But that's what I expected.
Yes.
This movie, and does it try to be more philosophical or deeper in any sense?
Absolutely not.
All right. Okay.
And in all honesty, I was one of the few people who could not buy into it the first time and kind of hated the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But, I have no soul, so I went in and watched the movie anyway. On the viewing, it's just nonsense, but it's kind of fun to look at. I feel like this one, the first one, it felt like they never took a second take. Okay. And every actor was just, you're going to say this line and we are almost out of film, so you're just going to go to the next thing. And I feel like they made a smart decision bringing in John Boyega. Everyone likes him from Star Wars and Attack the Block and various other things. But yeah, it's an exciting, it's star power, and he actually, it seemed like he knew he was in a movie, which is, I don't think that's too much to ask.
Yeah.
But, so all in all, it takes place 10 years after the events of the first one.
Okay.
And it's the son of Idris Elba's character.
Ooh.
So, a little bit interesting thing, but it doesn't matter, is the thing. There's
Just like
so
in the
much,
first one.
Exactly.
It didn't even
there
matter.
there are so many character moments that I think you're supposed to care about, but the whole time you're sitting in there waiting for the next monster fight. Okay. And I feel like this was another victim of bad marketing, is when you see the trailers, and I saw the Pacific Rim Uprising trailer 70 times.
Yeah, so quite
because there was huge marketing push for this, and every single one showed the kaiju in it immediately.
Oh yeah,
it takes
the larger one
way over an hour before any kaiju show up, and there's an interesting plot points around it. Okay, but I
find that odd, just because in the first one, you didn't see it. I think for a little while, you knew of it, you knew it existed. Yeah. Then they showed it. I feel like for the second film, and again, I have not seen the second film, but why wouldn't they just kind of throw it in 20 minutes in, bang?
The thing is, there are story elements that make sense, but it's still completely unnecessary. And if they should have known going into it that people are going to see the monster fights, and there's a couple of things to keep you entertained. And honestly, I think the beginning of this movie was probably my favorite part, where they're just talking about the fallout of the first one. There's kaiju bones all over the place. People are scrapping the Jaeger parts and building their own robots, and it's very interesting. They're recovering from the damages. Some places have been rebuilt, some places haven't, and it's a very interesting concept. And then you go back into the Pacific Rim part, and it immediately loses interest. And I am very bad at falling asleep in general. I almost nodded off twice while seeing the movie. But as soon as I heard an explosion, I knew, there's going to be a giant monster fight. I'm wide awake.
So they're cueing you into, if you're going to sleep through this film, we're going to give you a loud audio blast to let you know something cool is going to happen.
Essentially, you could have fallen asleep for 45 minutes of it, still come back and seen monster fights, and I think I'd be perfectly fine with it.
How long, you said they come in about an hour, how long is the film in total? Approximately?
Around 2 hours.
2 hours, okay,
so it's not,
halfway.
It's not going to hurt anyone's expectations, really, but it seems unnecessary, especially in a movie like this, where it's not life-changing, it's not the most creative thing, it's not the most out there thing, it's just interesting visuals to look at.
Would it still have bothered you if the marketing was done differently for the film?
I don't think so. The issue is, I saw the trailer so many times, and personally, I have no skin in the game. I don't care. Yeah. I was not someone who was super impressed with the first one, and when they announced the second one, I was like, I'm sure I'll see it, because why not? And as soon as they announced that Guillermo del Toro was not coming back to do the directing, that any bit of interest that I actually had just disappeared. But it's exactly what you'd expect it to be, and nothing more. So if you expect to go in being like, this changes the format of it, you're not going to get anything new.
Can we expect a third, you think?
There is a scene at the very end that hints that they are thinking sequel possibilities, but I don't really see it happening because the first one, it's a fluke that it made so much money, and this one, it struggled to beat Black Panther in its opening weekend.
Oh yeah,
which is
struggled
over a month later,
sure. Yeah,
and is now losing to Ready Player One, and I'm obviously the weekend's early, but yeah, there are more movies coming out now, and just a few weeks down the line is Avengers: Infinity War. So
I just have a question plot wise, because I haven't seen the film, and just you saying that there's kaiju bones all around, and then they have like people scrapping parts. Is this like the little man builds his own robot and is the evil character kind of thing, and then he tries to team up or work with the kaiju to beat the good guys? But then, like, is it a cliche? Is the story a cliche?
It's not necessarily a cliche because it almost seems like they're building to something like that.
Okay.
And then there's a scene where a character says something and you think to yourself, why did this happen? Mm-hmm. I don't really get the character motives for this, but I guess this is what means the final act is coming.
Okay.
So like what you said is cliche and would almost seem clever in the context of this movie.
So it's breaking the cliche.
It's breaking the cliche, but to the point of just avoiding the necessary steps to get to it. So instead of there's this bad character that's building up to do this, it's just at this moment in the movie we need someone to dislike. So by the way, this character is completely going to change.
Okay.
And it doesn't feel earned, in my opinion. And I saw the first one 5 years ago when it came out. And this movie was also a bit too late, I think, in my opinion, to gauge anyone's actual interest. Yeah. But I don't know. Unless I missed something huge, it makes sense in the movie, but it didn't. It only happened because it needed to happen. Okay. Like there's no.
All right, so that was my question. Like, if
it's
you're
not Iron Man 2. It's not like what is my boy?
Exactly.
Like it's not that. But it's just it's completely average. You're not going to go in, you're not going to get blown away. You'll see some monster fights, but it's nothing more impressive than the first one or even more impressive than like Kong Skull Island.
Okay.
It's just basic giant things fighting giant things.
All right, so like again, we could talk about going to this film. If you want to see big, huge things fighting each other, you're going to see a plot line that's not entirely cliche. The last like point of interest I think for a film like this would be like you said, John Boyega, and personally as a fan of like Always Sunny, like Charlie Day, he like I don't know, he played like the crazy kind of scientist person. When I think about this film, I think about those two people, and I want to see them act. Would that be a reason to go see this?
Probably more for Charlie Day. Okay. And that's another weakness of this movie, I think, is that the supporting characters are given so much to do, and they're very interesting, but they do not have enough screen time. Right. And you're given John Boyega, who's very charismatic and very interesting, but then you put him next to Scott Eastwood, who is a wet blanket of a human being, and 6 other characters that you're supposed to care about, but you're never given a moment with. So you have really no time to actually build a relationship. So if someone dies or someone gets hurt, you don't care. Okay. There's John Boyega. There's a little girl who is like the secondary main character. So forgettable that I don't remember her name, and I saw the movie less than 5 hours ago. So it's, yeah.
All right. Let me ask you this about the first one in comparison to the second one. Now, if I do recall, and I haven't seen the first one in a long time, but I believe there was like a nighttime fight scene between the robots and the kaiju. In the second one, at least in the trailers, I noticed there was more fighting going on during the day. Now, I'm pretty sure in terms of editing, it's more difficult to do effects during daytime than it is nighttime. Was there an upgrade of effects from the first one to the second one? Did anything pop a little bit more?
I do think like the actual the visual style of the fights are very well done, and the actual design of the robots are very well done, and the creature design, and it's a very interesting looking thing. But when you don't care about any of the characters involved or anything else, it's hard to see past it as anything more than a sensory explosion. Like you see a bunch of things happening on screen, but it's almost hard to tell. It's like a Transformers movie where you just see so many chunks of metal flying around. It's hard to really figure out whose chunks of metal you're looking at.
And this is in no way like a Transformers like competition.
No.
It's
It's Guillermo del Toro is an interesting individual who this is not a mean thing, has a child's brain when it comes to imagination and making a movie come to life. And a lot of his movies are super cheesy and super over the top because that's the way he likes it. And they did a good job setting up the universe of that in the first one.
Okay.
The second one doesn't really do anything more than that other than just bringing the same visuals that you remember from the first one.
Okay.
So it's not, it's by no means a downgrade.
Yeah.
And the fighting in the daytime is very interesting, and there's a couple of interesting set pieces involved with that. But yeah, it's nothing to write home about. It's exactly what you'd expect.
So the summary just basically being like, if you saw the first one, you by like the advertisements, you know what you're going to, and if you know you're going to like that kind of thing, you'll have a fine time.
Yeah.
It's not going to be Oscar worthy.
How would you rate this film? Like, for our, I don't know, how have we been rating?
I don't know.
We've been
Or just, okay, if you're going in expecting Kong Skull Island or like Godzilla, it's maybe a step below that, but it's still, it is far more enjoyable and far more coherent than a Transformers movie. So the action scenes still feel earned, but you don't care about any of the characters. So it's completely average, middle of the road. Watch it on TNT when it's on there inevitably in a few years. I really feel like there's no reason to see it in a theater.
Okay.
Because granted, the visuals are nice. It's like a glorified video game almost. So yeah, it's not a bad movie, but it does nothing more than it needs to exist.
Okay.
And I feel like that, in essence, almost denies the need for it to exist.
So,
but it made some money, and
So then I guess the final question is, like, if these characters that are really that unmemorable, is it memorable enough to actually connect this to Signs?
Are we doing 6 Degrees of Signs?
I think we might be doing 6 Degrees of Signs.
Well, if we think about this movie, who's in this movie? Well, you mentioned Charlie Day.
I did mention Charlie Day.
Charlie Day was in the Lego Movie with Chris Pratt.
All right.
Who is in the upcoming Avengers Infinity War with Scarlett Johansson. Who, if you remember in 2013, same year as Pacific Rim, was in a movie called Her with Joaquin Phoenix. What movie was Joaquin Phoenix in?
I think he might have been in a movie called...
Signs!
Signs Sealed Delivered.
Signs Sealed Delivered. It's Signs.
Well, thank you for that. You get me every time. Very well done.